Woo! Man, I got to tell you, that was close. I thought we were going to get through the season without hearing anything stupid out of Sheryl Swoopes' mouth and anything that sounds rather interesting, something that you might choose to give some side-eye to.
The Indiana Fever just sent shockwaves through the WNBA with a plot twist no one saw coming. In a bold and unexpected move, they released not one, but two high-profile rookies, leaving fans and analysts reeling. As the dust was still settling, Sheryl Swoopes, long seen as the unofficial president of the anti-Caitlin Clark fan club, emerged from the sidelines with perfect timing. But this time, her criticism wasn't aimed solely at Clark. She set her sights on the entire Fever organization, turning the situation into her own surprise comeback.
You have a black player that just got cut, and Sheryl Swoopes is not happy about that.
What began as a routine roster adjustment exploded into full-on league drama, packed with tension, controversy, and the kind of headlines that write themselves. Just when it seemed Sheryl Swoopes had faded into the background, she suddenly resurfaced, out of nowhere, ready to stir the pot. So, what exactly did she say this time, and how is the Indiana Fever responding to the growing buzz? Drop your thoughts about Swoopes in the comments. Let's hear it.
Call me nuts, but unfortunately for the old WNBA fandom and media, in her case, media and old players, unfortunately, in some cases, you do feel like there is something else lurking behind said opinions that may not be basketball related. Let's put it that way.
Let's kick things off with the roster cuts that lit up the headlines. The Indiana Fever just made one of the boldest preseason moves we've seen in a while. Bree Hall, yes, that Bree Hall, the dynamic guard and two-time national champion from South Carolina, was cut before she ever got a real shot on the court. No playing time in the opener against Washington, barely any minutes in the Brazil exhibition, and then, just like that, she was out. And if that felt like a shock to the system, hold on tight because the Fever weren't done yet.
All is now gone, as you know. And today it was announced that Yvonne Ejim has been waived by the Fever as well. Sophie Cunningham talked about that yesterday, saying you can latch on to another team, another place.
Just because you didn't make the roster doesn't mean you're out of the WNBA.
Roughly 24 hours later, the Fever dropped another bombshell, announcing the release of Gonzaga's scoring phenom, Yvonne Ejim. A standout with enough drive and passion to energize the entire Pacific Northwest, she too was cut before getting a real chance to show what she could do. Two promising rookies, both with decorated college careers and serious upside, were shown the door before they even settled in. It was a harsh reminder of the brutal reality of pro sports where talent alone isn't always enough. Timing, team fit, and the numbers game often decide fates. This is where dreams collide with the business side of basketball.
Indiana Fever, as expected, have waived Yvonne Ejim. She's just not at the level that the Indiana Fever are hoping her to be at.
The Fever announced it directly. Thank you, Yvonne Ejim, who was the all-time leading scorer in Gonzaga history.
Naturally, the big question is, why these two? To really understand the sting, you have to look at the Fever's salary cap situation. A major factor was the buyout of Katie Lou Samuelson's hefty contract, which the team had to eat in order to bring in key veterans. As a result, they could only afford to carry 11 players on the roster, and most of those spots were already spoken for by seasoned vets like Natasha Howard, Dana Bonner, Sydney Colson, Brianna Turner, Sophie Cunningham, and Damaris Dantas. All of them are on at least one-year guaranteed deals, meaning if the team cut them, their salaries would still count against the cap. The only players who could be released without leaving dead money on the books are those still on their rookie deals: Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull. And let's be real, no one's cutting them. Bottom line, 10 of the 11 roster spots were effectively locked in before training camp even started.
Man, it's hard, right? We all reached out. I think that they brought really good people in, great people into training camp this year. But just because you didn't make this spot, this is probably one of the harder rosters to make in the W this year. It doesn't mean you're out of the W, and you just got to keep ready, keep playing, keep grinding it out. And if It's hard to make the league. I know Sid and I, we were figure rounders. We stuck to her experience is a little bit different than mine, but just because you didn't make a roster doesn't mean you're out of the WNBA.
In reality, all three rookies, including Michaela Timpson, who has been turning heads with her standout performances in training camp and preseason games, were essentially competing for just one spot. That spot is likely to go to Timpson, given the Fever's need for younger forwards in the rotation and her impressive ability to run the floor while offering elite defense. Fans are already dubbing her the steal of the draft, especially after she was selected 19th overall when many expected her to go in the...
Timpson is obviously at a certain level. She's a rim runner. She just obviously has a higher ceiling than Egypt at the moment, and this is maybe a hot take.
For fans of Hall and Egypt, this one stings deeper. It wasn't just a numbers game or a move based on stats. It was the harsh reality of salary caps, tight roster spots, and the relentless race for a championship window. These cuts hurt because they symbolize more than just missed opportunities. They represent shattered dreams. In an instant, two players had their hopes dashed.
We saw Sheryl Swoopes in rare form, hating on Caitlin Clark all last year. Well, maybe she has figured out, well, hating on Clark, I've been told that's not really a great idea, yada, yada, yada. So, what other white girls can I tune up from the Indiana Fever?
As expected, the backlash came quickly, and leading the charge with all the intensity of a full-blown firestorm was none other than Sheryl Swoopes. The second Bree Hall's cut made headlines. Swoopes exploded onto the scene, almost as if she'd been waiting all off-season for the perfect moment to dive into the controversy. Her return wasn't subtle. It was a verbal body slam, making it clear she had a lot to...
The Washington Mystics Indiana Fever. Because I know on social media, people were like, well, why aren't the starters in for the Mystics? They could win this game. And I was there, right? Because preseason is about, yes, you're going to play your starters, you're going to play your players. Typically, they don't even play that many minutes, right? Because you have so many players on your roster that you got to make roster cuts. So you're still trying to figure out who can fit what we're doing.
On the latest episode of the Women's Hoop Show, Swoopes didn't just voice her concerns, she unleashed a verbal barrage, and her main target was head coach Stephanie White. Swoopes didn't hold back, accusing White of more than just poor rotation management. She claimed White practically sabotaged them. Her main question, why was Bree Hall left on the bench while players with less potential were getting priority?
You have a question, though, with Indiana, right? Because even though the starters weren't in, like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall they've been in the league for a while. You actually had players who, like Bree Hall, why wasn't she in that game per se? If you're still trying to figure out who's going to make the team, who you're going to cut. So I was a little confused with what Steph was doing.
If you're still trying to figure out who to cut, why wasn't Bree Hall even playing? Swoopes demanded, making her point clear. And if that wasn't sharp enough, the underlying message was even louder. This wasn't just about basketball. Decisions. It was about who gets the benefit of the doubt, who gets the chance to prove themselves, and who's pushed to the sidelines before they can even step on the court. And just when you thought Swoopes had said all she needed to, she cranked up the heat even more, turning her attention to the two players who benefited from White's strategy, Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull. Swoopes didn't just critique them, she dissected their presence with surgical precision. The way she framed it left plenty of implications, and those echoes rang loud through every WNBA Twitter space.
This is going to be a spicy season, because he was like, what, Sophie? Girl, don't come over here. Sophie was like,
Already,
I was
game one.
Here for it. The fact that that's a rookie, right?
I know. She did not back down.
But she just turned left. What are we doing?
Then came the remark that really sealed her stance. With a heavy dose of sarcasm, Swoopes quipped that maybe she should focus on tuning up the other white girls on the Fever now that she'd been told to back off from Caitlin Clark. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't shade. It was a direct hit, a spotlight on the situation, and a narrative bomb dropped right in the middle of the room.
My goodness. I mean, we've had 2 preseason games. 2. And we're back to it. We're back here. She's criticizing Stephanie White. I bet Sheryl Swoopes hates that last name. Criticizing Stephanie White, and of course it relates to Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham. Oh, I bet Sheryl Swoopes hates her some Sophie Cunningham. You know she does.
Let's not forget, this isn't Swoopes' first time taking aim at Caitlin Clark. She was one of the earliest critics to question Clark's records, her style, her confidence, her leadership, pretty much everything except her shoe size. Now, with Clark fully backed by the Indiana Fever and fans around the world rallying behind her, Swoopes isn't just targeting Clark anymore. She's got her sights set on anyone who aligns themselves with Clark in building this new WNBA powerhouse. Cunningham, Hall, and anyone else who dares to stand by her side.
She hadn't shied away from speaking her mind, as last season she raised questions about the legitimacy of Indiana Fever stars Caitlin Clark's collegiate scoring record. During the recent episode, Swoopes questioned Fever head coach Stephanie White's decision to give veterans like Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham minutes over Bree Hall and then cut her without giving her a fair opportunity to prove herself.
At this point, it's becoming crystal clear. Swoopes doesn't just disapprove of what the Fever are building, she outright resents it. She sees this wave of young, confident talent reshaping the face of the league, and she's not here to celebrate it. She's here to challenge it, question it, and, if need be, burn it down with sharp commentary every step of the way. But while Swoopes stokes the fire, Clark and the Fever are igniting something else. Excitement. Yes, cutting 2 promising rookies stings, but it was a calculated move in the pursuit of building a championship contender. Bree Hall and Yvonne Ejim have bright futures ahead, without a doubt, and they leave with nothing but respect for the heart, hustle, and professionalism they showed. As for the Fever, they're all in, and the rest of the league is starting to take note.
The preseason doesn't have to be just about your draft pick at all. It can be about, I need this team to learn how to build chemistry on the floor together, working as a team. By the way, learning my system because I'm a new coach and we're not playing under the Christie side rules anymore. You played basketball, Sheryl Swoopes? I don't understand.
And here's where Swoopes' hot take starts to crack under its own weight. Because let's be real, Coach Stephanie White's roster decisions weren't some reckless gamble. They were calculated, strategic, and built around the one thing that truly matters for a young team in the midst of a rebuild: chemistry, experience, and fit. For a squad trying to define its identity and compete at a high level, every roster spot counts. And White made those choices with purpose.
Keep in mind, a lot of this team is new to each other. So getting minutes with a new player like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall together, and some of these others, veterans, I'm sure is a priority. It's not about getting the minutes to prove whether or not they make the team. This team has to build actual chemistry if they want to win a title. That's what this is about.
No shade to raw talent, but in the WNBA, experience speaks volumes. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull have put in the work and earned their stripes at the pro level. They know the pace, the spacing, and the mental toll of a long season. They're not just figuring things out. They're helping hold things together. On a young, high-profile roster like Indiana's, you need steady hands. Players who won't flinch when the pressure hits and who can bring order to the chaos, not control.
The whole team outside of your core four, Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Lexi Hull, basically the whole rest of the whole team's new. Dantas is on there. Oh, you get my point, but you got a bunch of new pieces.
And when it comes to proving your worth, Sophie Cunningham did just that in the Fever's exhibition game against Brazil. She didn't just clock in. She dominated with two-way hustle, vocal leadership, and a presence that made one thing clear. I earned this. This wasn't a player coasting on reputation. This was a veteran who claimed her spot with grit and dared anyone to challenge it. But of course, none of that made it into Swoopes' latest tirade. Instead, she spun it into a darker narrative, one where Clark and her circle are painted as part of a system that shuts out worthy young...
Oh my god, Sophie's a dog. She just is, she's a competitor. She's versatile, so she allows us to do different things. Like, she plays with some toughness. And she's huge, and she's going to be for us all season long. But what she brings from an energy standpoint, she raises the level of play of everybody around her as soon as she steps foot on the floor. Hell, even on the sideline. Her communication, everything. She's definitely an X factor.
And when it comes to earning your spot, Sophie Cunningham made her case loud and clear in the Fever's exhibition game against Brazil. She didn't just take the court, she owned it, bringing relentless two-way hustle, vocal leadership, and a presence that said, "I've earned my place." This wasn't a player handed anything. This was a seasoned pro fighting for her role and proving why she belongs. But of course, none of that made it into Swoopes' latest rant. Instead, she spun the moment into something darker, pushing a narrative that Clark and her circle are part of a system designed to shut out deserving young talent.
This team is going to break so many records this year. Attendance, viewership, merch sales, all the things.
This was a pre-season WNBA game. It is unbelievable what it is Caitlin Clark does.
Whenever Caitlin Clark takes the floor, that maybe is different not only from any player in the WNBA, but from any player in basketball.
But as we've all seen, fame doesn't come without friction. And in Caitlin Clark's case, that friction has a name: Sheryl Swoopes. Last year, Swoopes was quick to downplay Clark's record-breaking college run, tossing out shade and skepticism at every turn. Now she's back, but this time, she's not just targeting Clark. She's pulling her teammates into the fire, framing the Fever's roster choices as veiled favoritism. Fair or not, the implications are loud enough to drown out the facts, fueling a narrative that often ignores the full picture.
People were so excited for this game for many reasons, but the main one being that Caitlin Clark would be returning to Iowa to play at Carver Hawkeye Arena, the Brazilian national team. Even though they lost by that much, it still seemed like they had a great time. Caitlin was signing their jerseys after the game. They were taking photos with her.
She's my role model. I really look up to her.
Here's the truth that keeps getting buried beneath all the noise. Caitlin Clark isn't the one making cuts. She's not crafting rotations, setting preseason lineups, or juggling the salary cap. That responsibility falls on head coach Stephanie White and the Fever's front office. But because Clark is the face of the franchise, every decision the team makes, every cut, every contract, every minute on the court, gets linked to her. That's the pressure cooker she's living in now, whether she asked for it or not.
Sheryl Swoopes is in mid-season hateration form. I'm sorry, this looks a different way to me. All right? There's no other way around it.
What's even more revealing is that Swoopes made it clear. This isn't just a one-time critique. It's the opening shot in what's shaping up to be a season-long grudge match. Every time Clark has a big game, expect someone to respond with, "Yeah, but..." Meanwhile, inside the Indiana locker room, the pressure is mounting. This isn't just about building chemistry. It's about weathering a media firestorm and thriving under a microscope. With Clark, Boston, Mitchell, Cunningham, Hull, Bonner, Howard, Coulson, Dantas, Turner, and whoever claims that final roster spot, this team is loaded with talent. But talent alone doesn't win championships. If the Fever want to become true, Contenders, they'll need trust, grit, and laser-sharp focus to shut out the noise and rise above the drama.
And unfortunately, I think they're not only going to go after Caitlin Clark this year, they're going to go after Sophie Cunningham and Lexington. There, I said it out loud.
And then there's the spotlight following Clark's every move, intense, unrelenting, and impossible to escape. She's not just expected to perform, she's expected to elevate the game. Miss a shot? It's trending. Turn the ball over? Cue. The hot takes. But sink a logo three, drop a no-look dime, or lead a clutch run. That's not just highlight material. It's polarizing. Because in today's WNBA, Clark isn't just a player. She's a symbol. She's not simply ushering in a new era. She's redefining what that era looks like. And not everyone's ready for it. For some in the old guard, it feels like a challenge to the status quo. For the new wave, it's a revolution gaining steam. So let's hear it. Was Swoopes calling out real issues, or is this just another case of the old guard trying to gatekeep the spotlight? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're riding with Caitlin Clark and the Fever, make it known. Because if this is just preseason tension, the regular season might just explode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This ride is only getting started.